The Meerkat telescope unlocks the secret of boomerang-shaped galaxies. The core stage of China's Long March 5B rocket, launched last week, has plummeted to Earth, and NASA sets the ground rules for working on the Artemis missions. It's Tuesday, May 19, 2020, day 58 of lockdown here in Australia. Let's talk some science.
Across Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts and YouTube, this is Talking Science with Dr. Brad Tucker and Matt Miller.
And a very happy Tuesday to you, Dr. Brad Tucker.
How's it going?
Really good, my friend, really good. How are you down there in the nation's capital?
Chugging through some fresh temperatures, let's say.
I love it. We've set up a new recording time. I was just talking to you off air about this one. We're a little bit earlier on the Tuesday now, and as we get into winter, we're all sort of rugged up, and I think you can tell that in our voices now. We're nice and snug and deep voiced and keeping warm.
Look, you know, it's it requires the body to enjoy the world in a unique way compared to the summer we had. Let's say that.
Well, given the summer that we had here in Australia, I'm looking forward to whatever winter can throw at us. We don't tend to have too many winter calamities.
No, look, that is the benefit here. Winter disasters are just not something we generally have.
Although we've said it now, so
yeah, look, we're screwed.
You can, of course, find Dr. Brad on social media, Facebook, Dr. Brad Tucker, and Twitter at BTucker22. He does the sciencey thing over there on the socials and here on Talkin' Science as well. So get to know him on social media, follow him, like the page. Do the same with Trekzone as well. Search for Trekzone wherever you are. Brad, let's dive into the headlines.
Talking Science headlines.
And the first one up is Space Force. The X-37B has had a successful launch.
Yeah, so the X-37B is this robotic space shuttle that was in command of the Air Force, but now Space Force exists and it's been transferred to Space Force. It had its sixth launch with a number of experiments, some kind of hinted at, most not hinted at. But you know, it's a reminder of what Space Force was designed to do, is to gather that capability, and that they are still going, even though they seemingly may not be moving in this current world.
And the two astronauts have entered routine quarantine for the historic Crew Dragon launch next Thursday.
That's right. They have a natural kind of couple-week quarantine period, so they've started it late last week, ahead of their 2-week window for a launch on the 28th U.S. time. So it's it's all happening.
It is going to be very cool, and we will be live for that launch next Thursday. And if schedules permit, Brad, I'm hoping that you'll join me in the live stream as well to watch this historic launch, the first time in 9 years that American astronauts have launched from American soil.
And look, NASA's putting a lot of work into making it virtual and people participating, because normally this would be huge, fanfare and people going out to see it live, and that's not possible in the current climate. So they want to make sure that that same kind of buzz and energy is not just lost in a virtual world.
Talking Science, stories of the week.
Alrighty, Brad, let's dive into the stories of the week. And the first one up, I love the title that I've given today's show. It's The Black Hole's Fault. It turns out a black hole is responsible for some pretty funky shapes in the night sky.
What isn't it the black hole's fault? That's what I really wonder. Yeah, this is kind of cool because, the Boomerang galaxy, or a galaxy that kind of looked like the Boomerang, because there is a Boomerang nebula, it's been a source of always is interest. It has a funny shape. There's been a lot of study into how galaxies collide and merge. Well, this one has always just been slightly different. Everyone kind of knew at least, there was a supermassive black hole at the center. The question was it black holes colliding? Was it the black hole doing something funny? Some people thought it might have been like the black hole spitting and like shooting water out like a hose that you've just turned on and let it go, and it's just spraying all around the yard. But using this, as he said, this new sensitive radio telescope in South Africa, they're able to pinpoint it's kind of actually just gas being shot out of the black hole, falling back down and bouncing off. So it really is just kind of normal activity of a black hole, but it's just happening in a fairly unique way.
You can get social with Trekzone. Australia's unofficial home of Star Trek is everywhere you are. Just search for Trekzone.
Well, Brad, our next story is about the Long March 5B. Now, Hubble was in our stories of the week for 3 weeks in a row. Now, this rocket has been in our stories for 3 weeks as well. It was coming, then it launched, and now it's come back to Earth. It's kind of a bit of symmetry.
Look, there is, and it's we're following the stories as they happen, and I think it's a highlight that things sometimes take long, and there's lots of parts of it. In this case, it's less of what happened on the launch and more what happened after the launch. And it's the mission doesn't stop until it fully stops, and this is the classic example of it.
And I've labelled this one China's Whoopsie. It's a bit of a whoopsie. Basically, what's happened is that the core stage of this rocket has fallen back to Earth pretty close to New York City.
Look, yeah, it's so it's not a surprise that the core stage came down. That is part of the plan. As you said, it's how it came down. So normally space debris has a plan that when it re-enters, it's slightly controlled, as in they can kind of pinpoint it to vast areas that are wide open. So the Pacific Ocean is a huge target. So in between New Zealand and Fiji and Tahiti, there's kind of a old graveyard of spacecraft somewhere in the bottom of the ocean. And that's because it's relatively uninhabited. There's very few things you can crash over. You don't like these things passing over land, because if they come down a tad too early, they crash on land, and that is not a good thing.
Alrighty, Brad, our last story of the week is all about Artemis, and we're going to be talking about this as the missions ramp up over the next couple of years. Hopefully we're going to stick around for 4 more seasons of Talkin' Science, because then we can be talking about actually landing on the lunar surface. But right now, the Artemis Accords have been laid out by the US Space Agency, and it's telling everyone how to act and how to behave while they're joining in on these missions.
Yeah, it's kind of laying the legal framework for participating. And there's a lot of interesting elements to this. The US took charge because it is a US-led mission, and I think that's completely fair. They're asking everyone, private companies, international countries, like Australia, hey, if you're going to participate, you have to agree to this. And one of the binding principles is that you are signing of the Outer Space Treaty. Now, over 100 countries have signed the Outer Space Treaty, so that's not a big push. They're trying to say these are laws and things that were designed in the 60s that we have all kind of agreed to. If you want to participate, agree to them as well. Where I think it becomes really interesting is there's always a second treaty called the Moon Treaty. And that becomes a bit more of the finicky one in terms of extracting and mining of resources in space. Now, Australia has signed that treaty, the US has not. And the Artemis Accords says we should think along the lines of these treaties, but not exactly. Be good, but we're going to change a few things to make it work for what we need to do in space and the moon. So it's a very delicate and yet political way of paving a way forward, of kind of saving face for something the US hasn't done, but also trying to give guidance to something they want to do.
Fantastic, Brad. Well, it is fun to pick apart the stories of the week with you each and every week here on Talkin' Science. Thanks very much for doing it with me, and thanks for producing another 5 episodes of Trekzone podcasting here on Talkin' Science.
Anytime.